Farmer cares for abandoned poor child, without knowing he's the son of a powerful businessman. Robert Johnson felt the weight of loneliness tighten his chest as he walked through the barn on that cold June morning. A widower for 3 years, the 52-year-old man kept to his routine on the small farm in Clear Springs, deep in Pennsylvania, as a way to escape the painful memories that still haunted him. That was when he heard a strange noise coming from the back of the barn. As he approached, he found a boy of about 8 years old curled up between the sacks of corn, shivering from the cold, his eyes red from crying. "Hey kid, what are you doing here?" Robert asked, crouching down slowly so as not to scare the child. The boy shrank back even more, clutching a worn-out backpack and a crumpled photo that Robert couldn't quite make out. "I won't hurt you, son. What's your name?" the farmer insisted, his voice naturally gentle. "Ethan," the boy murmured, barely audible. "Ethan, where are your parents? How did you get here?" The boy just shook his head, tears streaming down his dirty face. Robert noticed that the child's clothes, though simple, looked of good quality, and his sneakers, though dusty, were an expensive brand. "Daddy said to wait," was all Ethan managed to say before breaking down again. Robert's heart ached. He wasn't a father, but something in those frightened eyes awakened a protective instinct he didn't know he had. Mary, his late wife, had always said he would have been a good father if they'd had children. "All right, Ethan. How about you come with me to the house? You must be hungry and cold." The boy hesitated, but hunger won out. He followed Robert to the simple brick house, its white paint peeling, the yard full of chickens pecking at the ground. In the kitchen, as he warmed up some bean soup, Robert discreetly observed the boy. Ethan looked around curiously, but kept his backpack close as if guarding his greatest treasure. "How long has it been since you ate?" Robert asked, serving the steaming soup. "I don't know," Ethan replied, devouring the food with a politeness that surprised the farmer. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. That first night, Robert set up a makeshift bed on the living room couch for Ethan. The boy slept deeply, exhausted from whatever journey had brought him there. Robert, however, stayed up all night, wondering what to do. He couldn't just hand the child over to the authorities without knowing more about his situation. The next morning, Ethan woke before the farmer and was already in the yard, watching the chickens with fascination. "Good morning, little one," Robert greeted as he stepped outside, his straw hat already on his head. "Good morning, Mr. Robert," Ethan replied, having memorized the name the night before. "Want to help me take care of the animals today?" Ethan's eyes lit up with excitement. It was the first time Robert had seen a smile on the boy's face. Together, they fed the chickens, milked the single cow that had survived the financial struggles of recent years, and checked the vegetable garden. Ethan showed an impressive curiosity, asking smart questions about every task. When Robert explained how to care for the plants, the boy soaked it all up like a sponge. "Mr. Robert, why do some chickens lay white eggs and others lay yellow ones?" Ethan asked, crouching near the coop. The question caught Robert off guard. Not many kids paid attention to such details. "Depends on the breed, Ethan. The Rhode Island Reds lay brown eggs, the white Leghorns lay white ones. So the shell color doesn't change the taste." "Exactly. You're pretty sharp for your age." Ethan smiled shyly, clearly unaccustomed to compliments. Robert began to notice something different about that child, a premature maturity that left him puzzled. On the third day, while picking tomatoes in the garden, Ethan made an observation that sent a chill down Robert's spine. "Mr. Robert, do you sell these tomatoes? Sometimes I take them to the town market. Why? You should sort them by size and sell the smaller ones cheaper. People buy more when they have price options." Robert stopped what he was doing and stared at the boy. That wasn't the kind of remark an 8-year-old would normally make. "Where did you learn that, Ethan?" The boy clammed up immediately, falling silent again. Robert realized he'd touched a nerve and changed the subject. That afternoon, while Ethan napped in the shade of the mango tree, Robert took the chance to discreetly examine the backpack the boy never let out of his sight. Inside, he found some designer clothes, an expensive children's hygiene kit, and a school planner from an institution Robert recognized from TV commercials, one of the most expensive private schools in New York. There was also the crumpled photo Ethan always carried. It showed an elegant woman around 40 with a radiant smile and clothes Robert imagined cost more than his entire year's income. "Mom," Ethan murmured in his sleep. Robert quickly put everything back, pretending he hadn't seen a thing. But now he knew Ethan wasn't just an ordinary abandoned child. There was a story behind those sad eyes, and Robert feared finding out what it was. On Wednesday of the first week, the peace was shattered by the arrival of Mrs. Johnson, the local social worker. The 60-year-old woman showed up at Robert's farm unannounced, driving her old white Volkswagen van. "Good morning, Robert. I heard you have a child staying with you." Robert felt sweat trickle down his back. Clear Springs was a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. "Good morning, Mrs. Johnson. He's my nephew, my sister's boy from New York. Just here for a little vacation." The lie came out naturally, but Robert knew it wasn't convincing. Mrs. Johnson had known him for years and was well aware he had no sisters. "Robert, you know I have to check these things. Where are the child's papers?" "I forgot to ask my sister to send them. You know how it is, right? Family can be careless with these things." Ethan, who had hidden behind the house when he saw the van arrive, watched the conversation from a distance. Robert could feel the boy's fear, and it strengthened his resolve to protect him. "Robert, I'll be back next week. I want to see those papers, understand? And talk to the boy." After Mrs. Johnson left, Ethan approached Robert with teary eyes. "Mr. Robert, is that lady going to take me away?" "Not if I can help it, Ethan, but you need to tell me the truth. Where did you come from? Who are your real parents?" Ethan looked at the crumpled photo in his hands and started crying. "I can't say, Mr. Robert. Dad said it was dangerous." "Dangerous how, son?" "He said there were bad people who wanted to hurt us. That it was better for me to stay away for a while." Robert felt a shiver. The situation was more complicated than he'd thought. He decided not to push Ethan further for now, but he knew time was running out. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Robert called his friend William, who worked at the county clerk's office in the next town over. "Will, I need a favor. Can you get some papers made for a child?" "Robert, what's going on? Have you lost your mind?" "It's complicated, Will. There's a kid here who needs protection." "Robert, that's forgery. I could lose my job." "Please, Will. It's just temporary, until I figure things out." After much insistence, William agreed to help, but warned Robert about the risks he was taking. The following week, Robert enrolled Ethan in the rural school at Clear Springs with the fake documents. Mrs. Matthews, a 55-year-old woman who had been teaching for 30 years, was impressed by the boy's performance on the very first day. "Robert, this boy is exceptional. He solved math problems at a 5th grade level." "Ethan's always been sharp," replied Robert, trying to sound natural. "And his handwriting? Perfect for his age. Where did he study before?" "In New York. The education there is more demanding." Mrs. Matthews accepted the explanation, but Robert could tell she wasn't entirely convinced. At home, Ethan helped Robert with all the farm chores, his enthusiasm warming the farmer's heart. The boy had completely transformed in the past few weeks, laughing, playing, and showing a genuine joy Robert hadn't seen on that first day. "Mr. Robert, why don't you have any children?" Ethan asked one afternoon as they fixed a broken fence. The question caught Robert off guard. He and Mary had tried for years to have children, but never succeeded. "God didn't will it, Ethan. Sometimes things just happen that way." "Did you want children?" "Very much. My wife Mary did too." "Where is she?" Robert swallowed hard. It was the first time Ethan had asked about Mary. "She passed 3 years ago. She's with God now." Ethan fell silent for a few minutes, processing the information. "Mr. Robert, if I were your son, would you like that?" The question shattered the defenses Robert had built. He hugged Ethan tightly, tears streaming down his face. "I already love you like a son, Ethan. More than you know." "I love you like a father too," Ethan replied, returning the hug. In that moment, Robert realized his life had changed forever. It didn't matter where Ethan had come from or who his birth parents were. That boy had filled a void in his heart he thought would never be filled again. But reality wouldn't wait long to knock on the door. On Friday of the third week, while Robert was in town buying supplies, a black car with tinted windows parked in front of the small market where he usually shopped. A well-dressed man, around 45, stepped out wearing an expensive suit and sunglasses. The man entered the store and began asking questions about new children in the area. Old man Jenkins, the shop owner, grew suspicious and claimed he knew nothing. "I'm looking for an 8-year-old boy. My nephew, he got lost during a trip," the man explained, showing a photo. Robert, who was at the back of the store picking fruit, caught a glimpse of the picture. It was Ethan, but dressed neatly, completely different from the boy he'd found in the barn. The farmer slipped out the back door unnoticed and hurried home, his heart pounding. "Ethan! Ethan, come here!" he called as soon as he reached the farm. The boy came running, startled by the urgency in Robert's voice. "What's wrong, Mr. Robert? Did something happen?" "Ethan, I need you to tell me the truth right now. There's a man in town looking for you, says he's your uncle." Ethan's face instantly paled. He began trembling and clutched Robert's shirt. "Mr. Robert, don't let him take me. He's not my uncle. I'm scared of him." "Who is he, Ethan? I need to know to protect you." "He worked for Dad, but Dad said he was a bad man, said he wanted to hurt me." Robert took Ethan inside and locked all the doors and windows. "Ethan, where is your real father?" "I don't know. He said he was going on a trip and that I had to hide. He said when it was safe, he would come get me." "And your mother, the woman in the photo?" Ethan began to cry uncontrollably. "Mummy's been gone a long time. Dad said she wasn't coming back." Robert hugged Ethan, trying to comfort the boy, while also thinking of a solution. The situation had become far more complex and dangerous than he'd imagined. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. That night, Robert didn't sleep a wink. He kept watch over the property while Ethan slept in his room for the first time. The boy had nightmares and needed the farmer's presence to feel safe. The next morning, the man in the suit showed up at the farm. Robert met him at the gate, not letting him onto the property. "Good morning, I'm Marcus Thompson, a private investigator. I'm looking for a missing child." "I don't have any missing children here," Robert replied, trying to stay calm. "Sir, I have information that a child was seen in this area. It's a very serious matter. I only have my nephew here and he's not missing." Marcus studied Robert closely, clearly sensing the farmer was lying. "May I see your nephew?" "Just to confirm he's not the child I'm looking for." "He's at school. He won't be back until the afternoon." "Which school?" Robert hesitated. He couldn't give any details that might endanger Ethan. "Sir, I'll leave my card. If you hear anything, call me. There's a significant reward for information leading to this child." After Marcus left, Robert picked up the card. It read Marcus Thompson, Private Investigations, with a New York phone number. Robert immediately drove to the school and picked up Ethan, making up a family emergency excuse. Back at the farm, he started preparing an escape plan. "Ethan, we need to leave for a few days. Is that man really dangerous?" "Very dangerous, Mr. Robert. Dad said he did bad things for the company." "What company, Ethan?" For the first time, Ethan revealed something important. Dad's company. He said Marcus stole money and hurt people who found out. Robert realized he was dealing with something much bigger than he'd thought. Ethan wasn't just a lost child. He might be the key to something very serious. That afternoon, as he packed for their escape, Robert found Ethan crying in his room, staring at his mother's photo. "Ethan, tell me more about your mum. What happened to her?" "Mommy was really pretty and smelled nice. She played with me every day," Ethan said between sobs. "But one day she got really sad and left. Dad said she didn't love us anymore." "When did that happen?" "A long time ago. I was still little." Robert hugged Ethan, feeling the boy's pain as if it were his own. At that moment, he made a decision that would change their lives forever. "Ethan, no matter what happens, I won't let anyone hurt you. You're my son now, understand?" "Really, Mr. Robert? Really?" And a father protects his son from everything. That night, Robert decided to seek help. He called his cousin Richard, who worked as a lawyer in the city. "Richard, I need your help. Urgently." "What's going on, Robert?" "It's a very complicated situation. There's a child here who needs legal protection." "Robert, are you in legal trouble?" "It's not that, it's a child protection case. Can I count on you?" Richard, who had been raised by Robert after losing his own parents, didn't hesitate. "I'll be there first thing tomorrow. Don't do anything until I arrive." On Sunday morning, Richard pulled up to the farm in his modest car. He was a thin, serious man in his 40s, but with a good heart. "Robert, where's the child?" Ethan appeared timidly from behind Robert. Richard was impressed by the boy's manners and intelligence. "What's the real situation, Robert?" Robert told the whole story, from the day he found Ethan in the barn to the appearance of the private investigator. "Robert, do you realize you might be sheltering a kidnapped child?" "No, Ethan wasn't kidnapped. He ran away from a dangerous situation." According to him. But what if his version isn't true? Robert fell silent. He hadn't considered that possibility. "Richard, this boy was freezing and starving when I found him. Someone abandoned him. Or he ran away from home and his parents are desperately searching for him." Ethan, who had overheard the conversation, stepped closer to Richard. "Sir, I didn't run away from home. Dad told me to hide. He said Marcus would hurt me if he found me." Richard studied Ethan carefully. The sincerity in the boy's eyes was undeniable. "Ethan, what's your father's full name?" Ethan hesitated, glancing at Robert as if asking for permission. "Edward Parker," he finally whispered. Richard paled. He knew that name. "Ethan, is your father the owner of Parker Enterprises?" "I think so. He has a big company." Richard looked at Robert in shock. "Robert, do you know who Edward Parker is?" "No idea." "He's one of the richest businessmen in the country. His company is worth billions." Robert felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. Ethan was the son of a billionaire, and he was taking care of the boy on his simple farm. "Richard, does this change anything?" "It changes everything, Robert. If this boy really is Edward Parker's son, half the country must be looking for him." But the boy said his father told him to hide, or someone made him believe that. Ethan began to cry, sensing the tension in the conversation. "I'm not lying. Dad really told me to hide." Richard crouched down to Ethan's level. "Ethan, do you remember exactly what your father said?" "He was crying in his office. He said Marcus was doing bad things and that I had to leave for a few days. He said when it was safe, he'd come get me." "And how did you end up here?" "Mr. Anthony, the driver, brought me. He said he knew a safe place, but on the way he stopped for gas, and I got scared Marcus was following us, so I ran." Richard and Robert exchanged glances. The story was making sense. "Ethan, how long ago did this happen?" "I don't know how to count it right, but it's been a long time." "And you walked a long way to get to Robert's farm?" "A really long way. I slept on the road a few times. There were other bad people trying to catch me." Robert felt anger rise in him at the thought of Ethan alone on the road at just 8 years old, facing dangers he couldn't even imagine. "Richard, no matter whose son he is, this boy stays with me." "Robert, that's not how it works. If his father is looking for him, you have to give him back. What if his father really told him to hide? What if going back is dangerous?" Richard sighed, realizing the complexity of the situation. "Here's what we'll do. I'll quietly look into what's happening with Edward Parker and his company. In the meantime, Ethan stays here but hidden. What if the investigator comes back? We'll deal with that if it happens." On Monday, Richard returned to the city with the mission of uncovering the truth about Edward Parker. Robert stayed with Ethan, who now knew his secret was out. "Mr. Robert, are you going to turn me over to them?" "Never, Ethan. I promised I'd protect you, remember? But Mr. Richard said Dad might be looking for me. And if he is, we'll find out if it's safe for you to go back. If it's not, you stay here with me forever." Ethan smiled, the first genuine smile since the truth had come out. "Mr. Robert, can I call you Dad?" Robert felt his eyes well up. "Of course you can, son. Of course you can." Meanwhile, in the capital, Richard began his investigation. He discovered that Edward Parker had indeed disappeared from the public eye almost 2 months ago. The company was being managed by a board of directors, and there were rumors of an internal investigation into corruption. Richard managed to schedule a meeting with a lawyer representing Parker Enterprises. "Dr. Charles, I'm Richard Johnson, an attorney. I'd like to know about the current situation regarding Mr. Edward Parker." "It's a delicate matter, colleague. Mr. Edward is dealing with some personal issues and has temporarily stepped away from the company." "What kind of issues?" "I can't go into details, but it involves his family's safety." Richard felt he was on the right track. "I know this is indiscreet, but is there any information about his son?" "Ethan?" Dr. Charles visibly tensed. "How do you know about Ethan?" "It's a complicated situation. Can I speak with Mr. Edward?" "He's not available for contact at the moment. It's an emergency involving Ethan's well-being." Dr. Charles hesitated. "I'll see if it's possible. Leave your information with me." Richard left the meeting with more questions than answers, but at least he had confirmed that Ethan was indeed missing and that there was a security situation involved. On Wednesday, Richard received a phone call that would change everything. "Dr. Richard, this is Edward Parker. I heard you have information about my son." "Mr. Parker, I need to speak with you in person. It's about Ethan." "Is Ethan okay? Please, tell me he's okay." The desperation in the businessman's voice was genuine. Richard realized Ethan had been right about his father. "He's safe and sound, but we need to talk urgently." "Where are you? I can come to you right now." "No, sir. It's better if we meet somewhere neutral. There are dangerous people looking for Ethan." "You know about Marcus. How did you find out?" "Ethan told me." "Mr. Parker, your son is under the protection of people who care about him, but we need to resolve this situation." They arranged to meet the next day at a discreet cafe downtown. Richard immediately called Robert. "Robert, I'm meeting Ethan's father tomorrow." "What's he like? Does he seem like a good man?" Over the phone, he sounded desperate to find his son, but I'll assess him in person. "What if it's a trap?" "I'll be careful. In the meantime, keep Ethan hidden." That night, Robert talked to Ethan about the possibility of reuniting with his father. "Ethan, if your father is really looking for you, what would you like to do?" "I want to see Dad, but I'm scared of Marcus." "What if we could solve the Marcus problem? Then I'd want to stay with both of you, with Dad and with you." "I don't know if that's possible, son." "Why not? You could be my second dad." Ethan's innocence touched Robert's heart. If it were up to him, they'd find a way to keep the family they'd built. On Thursday, Richard arrived at the cafe an hour early. He wanted to observe Edward Parker before introducing himself. When the businessman arrived, Richard was shocked by his appearance. Edward Parker looked like he'd aged 10 years. He was thin, with deep bags under his eyes, and his clothes, though expensive, were wrinkled. Richard approached the table. "Mr. Parker? You're Richard? Where's Ethan? How is he?" "Sir, first I need to be sure you're really his father and that your intentions are good." "What do you mean?" "Of course I'm his father. Look, here are pictures of him as a baby." Edward showed his phone with hundreds of photos of Ethan. Richard could see genuine love in the man's eyes. "Mr. Parker, Ethan told me about Marcus Thompson. Is it true he's a threat?" Edward let out a deep sigh. "Marcus was my right-hand man at the company. I found out he was embezzling millions and using illegal methods to secure contracts. When I confronted him, he threatened me, said if I reported him, something bad would happen to Ethan." "And you believed the threat?" "Marcus is capable of anything. I couldn't risk my son's life." "So you really sent Ethan into hiding?" "Yes. I asked Anthony, my trusted driver, to take Ethan to a safe place while I dealt with Marcus." "And what happened to Anthony?" Edward lowered his head. "He had an accident the next day. He's been in a coma for 2 months. I never found out where he left Ethan." Richard began to understand the full situation. "Mr. Parker, what about the situation with Marcus? Was it resolved?" "Not entirely. I managed to gather evidence against him, but he's still free and dangerous." The investigation is in the hands of the authorities. Ethan is safe, sir. He's being cared for by a very good person. Edward began to cry. Can I see him? Please, I need to see my son. I'll arrange it. But there's one condition. Anything, I'll do whatever it takes. The person caring for Ethan has grown very attached to him. We can't just take Ethan out of this person's life without considering everyone's feelings. Edward was silent for a few minutes, processing the information. Is Ethan happy with this person? Very happy. For the first time in months, he's smiling again. Then this person must be very special. I'd like to meet them and thank them in person. Richard was impressed by Edward's mature response. I'll arrange a meeting, but with all necessary safety precautions. On Friday, Richard returned to Clear Springs with Edward. The businessman traveled in an ordinary car without a driver, wearing simple clothes to avoid drawing attention. During the trip, Richard shared more details about Robert and how he'd found Ethan. Dr. Richard, this person, Robert, does he want to keep Ethan? He loves Ethan like a son, but he also understands you're the biological father. And Ethan, what does he want? He wants to stay with both of you. Edward smiled for the first time in months. You know what? If this person cared for my son when I couldn't, they'll always have a special place in our lives. Arriving at the farm, Richard first spoke with Robert. Robert, I've brought Ethan's father. He seems like a good man, but it's up to you whether he meets Ethan. What's he like? He's been destroyed by being apart from his son. Clearly loves Ethan very much. Robert took a deep breath. Bring him in, but I'll stay with them. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Edward entered the property and was struck by its simplicity. It wasn't luxurious, but it radiated peace and warmth. Robert appeared on the porch, wearing his straw hat and work overalls. Edward was surprised by the humble appearance of the man who'd cared for his son. Are you Robert? Edward asked, extending his hand. That's me. You're Ethan's father? I am. I don't know how to thank you for looking after my son. Robert studied Edward carefully. He saw sincerity in the businessman's eyes. Where's Ethan? Edward asked anxiously. He's at school. He'll be back soon. Edward was surprised. School? You enrolled him in school? Of course, a child needs to learn. Is he okay? Happy? He is, but he suffered a lot before coming here. He was very scared. Edward lowered his head, guilt weighing on him. I never wanted this to happen. I just wanted to protect him. I know. Ethan told me everything. Just then, they heard the sound of the school's Volkswagen van arriving. Ethan ran down and headed toward the house as he did every day. Dad Robert, look what I learned at school. Ethan stopped abruptly when he saw Edward. Father and son stared at each other for a few seconds, as if they couldn't believe their reunion was really happening. Daddy, whispered Ethan. Ethan, my boy. Edward knelt and opened his arms. Ethan ran to his father, and they hugged tightly, both crying. Robert felt his eyes well up at the sight. Daddy, I knew you'd come for me, Ethan said through tears. Forgive me, son. Forgive me for taking so long. After the emotional reunion, the four of them sat on the porch to talk. Ethan, did this man take good care of you? Edward asked. Dad Robert is really good to me. He taught me how to care for the chickens, plant tomatoes, and even let me help milk Spotty the cow. Edward smiled at his son's excitement. Dad Robert? That's what I call him, Ethan replied naturally. Edward looked at Robert with gratitude. Robert, I don't know how to repay you for what you've done for Ethan. There's nothing to repay. Ethan brought joy to my life too. Daddy, can Dad Robert still be my dad too? Ethan asked innocently. Edward and Robert exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Ethan, you only have one father and that's me, Edward explained gently. But Dad Robert took care of me when you couldn't. Doesn't that make him my dad too? The child's logic touched both men's hearts. Ethan's right, Edward said. Robert, you saved my son. If you want, you'll always be welcome in our lives. And you in ours. Robert replied. Ethan is a special boy. He deserves all the family he can have. That afternoon, Edward told Ethan about the situation with Marcus and explained why they'd had to separate. Marcus is still dangerous, Ethan. That's why we can't go home yet. Where will we live then? Edward thought for a moment. How about we stay here for a while? If Robert allows it, of course. Robert was surprised by the suggestion. Here? But Mr. Edward, you're a wealthy man. You won't get used to the simple life here. Robert, just call me Edward. And don't worry about that. I want to learn to live simply. Maybe that's what's been missing in my life. Ethan beamed at the idea. Daddy, will you learn to milk Spotty too? I'll try, Edward laughed. Richard, who had watched everything, was moved by how things had unfolded. Well, it seems we've found a solution for everyone. We still have to deal with Marcus, Edward reminded him. About that, I have an idea, Richard said. What if you pretend you're still in hiding while we gather more evidence against him? It could work, but I need to stay in touch with my team to manage the company. That can be done discreetly from here. That night, after Richard left for the city, Edward, Robert, and Ethan had dinner together in the farm's simple kitchen. Daddy, do you like Dad Robert's cooking? Ethan asked. It's delicious. It's been a long time since I've had such good home-cooked food. Dad Robert cooks better than the chefs at our house. Edward smiled, realizing how Ethan already considered this place his home too. Ethan, can you teach me the farm chores? Edward asked. Of course. Tomorrow morning we'll feed the chickens together. After Ethan fell asleep, Edward and Robert talked on the porch. Robert, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why did you risk everything for Ethan? You didn't even know who he was. Robert thought for a moment. My wife Mary always said God puts the right people in our path at the right time. Ethan showed up when I needed purpose in my life the most. Did you lose your wife recently? 3 years ago. It still hurts, but Ethan brought joy back to this house. Edward stayed silent, understanding Robert's pain. Do you want to have biological children? Edward asked. Mary and I tried for years, but it never happened. After she passed, I thought I'd never be a father. Robert, no matter what happens, Ethan will always have you as a father figure. I promise you that. The next morning, Ethan woke both men up early, eager to teach his biological father the farm chores. Dad, wake up, the chickens are hungry. Edward, who was used to sleeping in, took a few minutes to adjust to the new routine. Ethan, what time is it? 6 in the morning. On the farm, we wake up early. Edward dressed in the simple clothes he'd brought and followed Ethan and Robert to the backyard. First lesson, Robert said. Chickens have their own personalities. Some are feisty, others are sweet. Edward laughed as a chicken approached, pecking at his hands in search of corn. This one's Pebbles, Ethan explained. She's the smartest. Always gets more food than the others. How did you name all of them? Dad Robert says everything we care for deserves a name, Ethan replied. Edward was struck by Robert's simple wisdom and how it had shaped Ethan. After feeding the chickens, they went to milk Spotty the cow. Dad, Spotty's a little stubborn. You have to be patient with her, Ethan instructed. Edward tried milking but was clearly clumsy. The cow shifted impatiently. Let me show you, Robert said, demonstrating the right technique. How did you learn this? Edward asked. My father taught me when I was Ethan's age. It's a tradition passed down through generations. Edward realized there was a whole world of knowledge money couldn't buy. After the morning chores, they had breakfast together. Edward was visibly tired but happy. Dad, did you like it? Ethan asked. I really did. It's unlike anything I've ever done. What do you do at the company? Ethan asked. Edward realized he'd never properly explained his work to his son. I organize construction projects, son, buildings, houses, things like that. Like Dad Robert organizes the farm? Similar but different. It's more complicated and has less heart in it. Robert smiled at Edward's answer. Work done with heart always yields better results, Robert remarked. I'm starting to see that, Edward agreed. That afternoon, while Ethan was at school, Edward helped Robert fix a broken fence. Robert, can I ask you something? Of course. Aren't you afraid I'll take Ethan away and you'll never see him again? Robert stopped what he was doing and looked at Edward. I am, but Ethan isn't my property. He's a person, and people have the right to choose where they belong. What if I told you I want Ethan to always have you in his life? I'd be very grateful, but I'd also understand if you both decided to move on without me. Edward was moved by Robert's emotional maturity. Robert, have you ever thought that maybe Ethan isn't the only one being saved in this situation? What do you mean? I was lost too. Buried in work, not knowing how to be a father, not understanding what really matters in life. These days here are teaching me things I never learned. Like what? Like being present, like truly listening, like finding joy in simple things. Robert smiled. Life here is simple, but it's not easy. It has its own struggles. What kind of struggles? Money, mostly. This farm has been struggling financially for years. Edward grew thoughtful. Robert, can I help with that? I don't want your charity, Edward. It's not charity, it's an investment. How about if I bought part of the farm and we became partners? Robert was surprised by the proposal. Are you serious? Completely serious. I need a place to restart my life, and Ethan needs stability. We can do this together. But do you know how to run a farm? No, but I can learn, and you can teach me. That night, during dinner, Edward made the official proposal. Ethan, Robert, I have an idea. How about if I moved here for good and we ran the farm together? Ethan nearly choked with excitement. Really, Dad? We'll all live together? If Robert agrees. Robert was visibly emotional. Edward, are you sure? Your life is so different from here. I'm sure. I want to rebuild my relationship with Ethan, and I want to do it the right way. What about your company? I can manage it remotely. The company has the structure to run without me being there all the time. Ethan got up from the table and hugged both men at once. Now I have two real fathers. That week, Edward began putting the plan into action. Through Richard, he handled the legal steps to become Robert's partner on the farm. He also bought new equipment and hired improvements for the property, always consulting Robert on every decision. Robert, I don't want you to feel like an employee. We're real partners. But you're putting in all the money. And you're putting in all the knowledge. Those are equally important contributions. Ethan was overjoyed with the changes. He had both his fathers working together, the farm improving every day, and the certainty that he wouldn't be separated from either of them. But their peace would soon be tested again. On the Monday of the second week, Marcus Thompson showed up at the farm, this time accompanied by two intimidating-looking men. Robert was in the field with Edward when they saw the cars approaching. Ethan was at school, which was a relief. Edward? Is that him? It's Marcus. Hide, Robert. He can't know you know me. I won't leave you alone. Please, Robert. Ethan could lose both his fathers if something goes wrong. Reluctantly, Robert hid behind the stable, but stayed close enough to intervene if needed. Marcus approached Edward with a fake smile. Edward, finally found you. We were all worried. Marcus, how did you find me? Competent investigators. Where's Ethan? Safe. Far from you. Edward, you're making a mistake. I'm your friend. I'm here to protect you. Protect us from who? Yourself? Marcus lost his composure. Edward, you don't understand the situation. There are very dangerous people after you. I need to take you somewhere safe. What people? Competitors who want to hurt the company. You're in danger here. Edward realized Marcus was lying but decided not to confront him directly. Marcus, Ethan is fine where he is. I won't take him away from here. Edward, don't be stubborn. Ethan is your son. You have responsibilities. Exactly. And my responsibility is keeping him away from people like you. Marcus signaled to the two men with him. They moved toward Edward threateningly. Edward, are we doing this the easy way or the hard way? Just then, Robert appeared with a hunting rifle. Get off my property, now, Marcus laughed. And who are you? The caretaker? I own this land and you're trespassing. Sir, don't meddle in business that isn't yours. We're just taking our friend home. If you were friends, he'd go willingly. One of Marcus's men tried to approach Robert but stopped when he saw the farmer was ready to use the gun if needed. Marcus, let's go. said Edward. "Ethan isn't even here." "Where is he?" "Somewhere you'll never find him." Marcus turned red with anger, but realized he was outnumbered and out of place. "Edward, this isn't over. You know what I'm capable of." "I do. That's exactly why Ethan is far away from you." After Marcus and his men left, Edward and Robert hugged, trembling with relief. "Edward, that was too close." "Robert, I'm sorry I brought this danger to your home." "Our home, and family protects family." That afternoon, when Ethan came back from school, he noticed the tension in the air. "What happened? You both seem off." Edward and Robert exchanged glances, deciding to tell him the truth. "Ethan, Marcus was here today." The boy paled instantly. "Did he see me?" "No. You were at school. Is he coming back?" "We don't know," Edward answered honestly. "But if he does, we'll be ready." "Dad, I want to keep living here with both of you." "And you will, son. We'll figure this out." That night, Edward called Richard to speed up the legal process against Marcus. "Richard, things got serious. Marcus showed up here today." "Did he make any direct threats?" "Implied ones. He brought 2 men with him." "Edward, you need protection." "I don't want to involve the police yet. It could put Ethan in danger." "Then we'll speed up the case. I have contacts who can help." Richard worked day and night over the next few days, gathering evidence against Marcus and preparing a legal strategy to neutralize him for good. Meanwhile, at the farm, Edward, Robert, and Ethan kept to their routine, but stayed vigilant. Edward had discreetly hired a private security guard to monitor the property from a distance, without Ethan knowing. On Thursday, Richard arrived with good news. "Edward, we have enough evidence to arrest Marcus. The operation happens tomorrow." "Are you sure it'll work?" "The evidence is solid. Embezzlement, corruption, threats. Marcus will be locked up for a long time." "And Ethan, will he be safe?" "Completely. After tomorrow, you can all live normally." On Friday morning, Edward got the call he'd been waiting for. "Mr. Parker, this is Sheriff Wilson. Marcus Thompson has been arrested, along with his accomplices. You and your family are safe now." Edward broke down in tears of relief. Finally, Ethan could live without fear. "Ethan! Robert, come here!" The two rushed over to see what was happening. "Ethan, son, it's over. Marcus is in jail. You're safe now." Ethan hugged his father tightly. "Can we keep living here?" "As long as you want, son." "Forever?" Edward looked at Robert, who smiled with emotion. "Forever." In the following months, the farm thrived like never before. Edward had brought not just financial resources, but also renewed energy to the business. Robert taught Edward everything about farming and livestock, while Edward contributed his knowledge of management and marketing. Ethan grew up happy, balancing his studies at the local school with farm chores, surrounded by the love of his 2 fathers. The community of Clear Springs had been curious about the businessman's arrival at first, but Edward soon won everyone's respect with his humility and willingness to learn. "Edward," Robert said one afternoon as they harvested tomatoes, "don't you miss your old life?" "Sometimes I miss the comfort, but I don't miss the emptiness I felt before." "Emptiness?" "I had everything materially, but no real life. I didn't know my own son. I didn't know what genuine satisfaction was." "And now you do?" "Now I do. It's this. It's seeing Ethan running around the yard. It's working with my hands. It's having true friends like you." That evening, Ethan came home from school with news. "Dad Robert, Dad Edward, Mrs. Matthews said I can compete in a math competition in the capital." "That's wonderful, son," they both said at the same time and laughed at the synchronicity. "Are you two coming with me?" "Of course," replied Edward. "All 3 of us together," added Robert. In the competition, Ethan stood out and took 2nd place in the state. Edward and Robert were beaming with pride. "My son is a genius," Edward told anyone who would listen. "Our son," Robert corrected with a smile. Ethan, on stage receiving his medal, waved to his 2 fathers in the audience. At that moment, everyone present could see the genuine love that bound this unconventional family together. After the ceremony, a journalist approached them. "Excuse me, but may I do a story about you? Your family's story is very interesting." Edward hesitated, still wary of exposure. "Don't worry," said Robert. "Our story might inspire others." "What kind of story?" asked Edward. "About unconventional families, about how love can overcome any hardship." Ethan tugged at his father's sleeve. "Dad, Edward, can we tell our story? Maybe it'll help other kids who are lost like I was." Edward looked at Robert, who smiled encouragingly. "All right. But we want to review the story before it's published." The article was published a month later under the title, "The Family That Found Each Other in the Countryside." It told the story of Edward, who had left his life as a billionaire businessman to dedicate himself to family and a simple life in the countryside, and Robert, who had opened his heart and home to a lost child. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of people wrote letters sharing their own stories of rebuilt families and overcoming adversity. One of the most touching letters was from Anthony, the driver who had been hospitalized. "Mr. Edward, I woke from my coma a week ago and heard about your story through the article. I'm so happy Ethan found such a special family. I always knew you were a good man, and Robert seems like a wonderful person. Ethan deserves all the happiness in the world." Edward, Robert, and Ethan went to visit Anthony in the hospital. It was an emotional reunion. "Mr. Anthony," Ethan shouted, running to hug the driver. "Ethan, how you've grown and how handsome and healthy you look. Mr. Anthony, these are my two dads, Dad Robert and Dad Edward." Anthony smiled, immediately understanding the family dynamic. "Mr. Edward, you found a treasure in this boy and this man." "I know, Anthony. Truth is, they found me." After fully recovering, Anthony was hired to work on the farm, not as a driver, but as part of the extended family Edward and Robert were building. On the first anniversary of Ethan's discovery in the barn, the family held a celebration that became a tradition in Clear Springs. "1 year," Edward said, watching Ethan play with the neighborhood kids. "Feels like a lifetime." "It was a lifetime," Robert replied. "The life we truly started living." "Robert, can I confess something?" "Of course." "At first, I was afraid Ethan would love you more than me. And now? Now I understand love isn't a competition. The more love Ethan gets, the happier he is, and the happier he is, the more fulfilled I feel." "Edward, can I confess something too?" "Of course." "At first I was afraid you'd take Ethan away and I'd be alone again. And now? Now I know family isn't about blood or papers, it's about choice, and every day we choose to be family." Ethan ran up to them, sweaty from playing. "What are you two thinking about?" "We're thinking how lucky we are," Edward answered. "Because of me?" "Because of us," Robert said. "Because we found each other. You know I love you both the same, right?" "We know," they said in unison. "And do you know you're the best parents in the world?" "We're not perfect, Ethan," said Edward. "But we try every day to be better," added Robert. "That's why you're the best. Not because you're perfect, but because you care." That night after the party, the three of them sat on the porch, watching the stars. "Dad Robert, tell me that story from your childhood again," Ethan asked. "Which one?" "The one about the day you found a hurt little bird and took care of it until it could fly again." Robert began telling the story, and Edward noticed Ethan always asked for it when he was processing something important. "Ethan, why do you like that story so much?" Edward asked. "Because it's just like our story. Dad Robert found me hurt and took care of me until I could fly again. And then you came, and now we fly together." Edward and Robert exchanged glances, moved by the boy's wisdom. "Ethan," Edward said, "you know no matter what happens in the future, we'll always be your family, right?" "I know. And you know no matter where I go or what I do, you'll always be my parents, right?" "We know," they answered together. 2 years later, the farm had become one of the most prosperous in the area. Edward had introduced modern farming techniques, but always respected Robert's traditional knowledge. Ethan, now 10, had become something of a local celebrity for his intelligence and his family's story. "Dad Edward," Ethan said one morning over breakfast, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, son. Do you ever regret leaving your life as a businessman?" Edward thought for a moment. Never, Ethan, why? Because some boys at school said you were crazy for giving up so much money to become a farmer. And what did you say? I said my dad isn't crazy. I said he chose what was more important. And what's more important, Ethan? Family, happiness, doing what we love with the people we love. Edward hugged Ethan tightly. You've got it all figured out, son. Dad Robert taught me. Robert, listening from the kitchen, smiled with emotion. That weekend, they had an unexpected visitor, Mrs. Johnson, the social worker who had once threatened to take Ethan away years before. Hi, Robert. I came to check on the boy. He's doing well, Mrs. Johnson. Ethan, come say hello to Mrs. Johnson. Ethan came running, followed by Edward. Hi, Mrs. Johnson. Do you want to see my garden? I planted it all by myself. Mrs. Johnson was impressed by Ethan's growth. Robert, did you sort out all the boys' paperwork? We took care of everything, Mrs. Johnson. Ethan was officially adopted. By you? By both of us, Edward answered, introducing himself. Mrs. Johnson immediately understood and smiled. Well, it seems you've found a creative and loving solution. Ethan has everything he needs here, Robert said. I can see that. The boy is radiant. After Mrs. Johnson's visit, Ethan shared a thought that surprised both fathers. Dad Edward, Dad Robert, can I suggest something? Of course, son. What if we helped other kids like Mrs. Johnson does? How do you mean? We have a big farm, plenty of love, and knowledge to teach. We could take in other kids who need a family. Edward and Robert exchanged glances, struck by the maturity of the suggestion. Ethan, that's a huge responsibility, Edward said. I know, but we don't have to do it the same way you did with me. We can help in other ways too. Like what? We could have kids stay for weekends or vacations, or teach them things about farming if they want to learn, Robert smiled. Ethan, that's a wonderful idea. You think so? I think you inherited the generous heart of both your fathers, said Edward. That Christmas, the farm welcomed 5 children from a local orphanage to spend the holidays. Ethan was the perfect host, patiently and lovingly teaching them every activity on the farm. Ethan, said one of the children, your parents are really cool. They're the best. And you know what's even cooler? What? They taught me that family isn't just about who you're born with. Family is who chooses to stay together and take care of each other. Edward and Robert, overhearing the conversation, embraced each other, moved. Robert, whispered Edward, thank you for teaching me how to be a father. Edward, thank you for teaching me it's never too late to have a family. 5 years passed. Ethan, now 13, had grown into a responsible and caring young man. The farm thrived and had become a social project that regularly hosted children. Edward continued managing his company remotely, but his priority was the family he had built with Robert. Robert had become a recognized expert in sustainable agriculture, giving lectures and hosting delegations from other countries. Ethan attended a private school in the neighboring town, but always rushed home, eager to help on the farm. Dad Robert, Dad Edward, Ethan said one afternoon, I want to talk to you about my future. We're listening, son, said Edward. I've thought a lot about it, and I want to study agronomy. I want to modernize farming, but without losing the essence Dad Robert taught me. Ethan, are you sure? You can study anything you want, said Edward. I'm sure. I want to continue both of your work. I want our farm to be proof that it's possible to produce with responsibility and love. Robert smiled proudly. Ethan, it would be an honor to have you as our successor. Not a successor, a partner, the 3 of us together always. At that moment, Edward realized his journey was complete. He had left behind an empty life, though materially rich, for a simple yet emotionally abundant one. Ethan had found not just a family but a life purpose. Robert had discovered it's never too late to start over, and that family can be built with love and dedication. Ethan, said Edward, can I confess something? Of course, Dad. The day you disappeared, I thought I'd lost everything. Now I realize that was the day I began to find everything. What do you mean? Losing you made me see what truly mattered, and finding you again gave me so much more than I'd lost. You brought me home. "But you also brought a home to me," said Ethan, looking at both his fathers. "This was always your home, Ethan," said Robert, "from the very first day you arrived here." "I know, and it always will be." That evening, the three of them dined on the porch, watching the sunset over the fields they had cultivated together. "Ethan," said Edward, "do you know your birth mother would be proud of who you've become?" "I think so, but I know I have two fathers who are proud every day." "And you have every right to be proud too," said Robert, "of the man you're becoming and the family you helped build." "Our family is different, isn't it?" said Ethan. "It's one of a kind," replied Edward. "It's perfect for us," added Robert. Ethan smiled, looking at the crumpled photo of his mother he still carried, now framed on the wall alongside pictures of his new family. "Mum, thank you for teaching me about love." "Dad, Edward, thank you for choosing me as your son." "Dad, Robert, thank you for finding me," Ethan said softly, like a prayer of gratitude. Edward and Robert exchanged a glance, knowing they had achieved something rare and precious, a family built not by chance, but by the conscious choice to love and care for one another. As the stars appeared in the sky, the three remained on the porch in comfortable silence, savoring the peace of those who know they've found their place in the world. The farm would continue to thrive, not just as a business, but as a home where love had planted deep roots and blossomed into a family that proved the strongest bonds aren't those of blood, but those chosen by the heart. The end. Now, tell us what you thought of this touching story of perseverance and family. Do you believe love can truly build family bonds as strong as those of blood? Share your thoughts and your own experiences with heart-chosen families in the comments below. Don't forget to like if this story touched your heart, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more stories celebrating the transformative power of love and human kindness.